Was that 2024? No, 23. Probably when was the last? So last ADCC was this year or last year? Last year. So 2024. So 2022. So 22 years later, to see how far it's come to having an event like that, right? Was really nice. You know, had this brand called Tap Out. Ended up becoming like a huge brand, one of the main sponsors for UFC. But back in those days, they were selling out of their trunk. You know, they were giving the guys shirts. You know, they were just starting out. You know, and you had like, you know, the biggest names. You know, like Jake Shields, Eddie Bravo was like his. I think it was the first no-gi tournament. It was I think it's like first one or second one that he competed in, and he won, and we all won. So it was really cool. Like Jake Shields and a bunch of, you know, big name guys, right? That are big names or became big names. So it was really cool to see the thing, the evolution. And back in those days, it was in a high school, right? So to see it from a high school, from guys selling, you know, that's all the gear there was back in those days. If you got a shirt, you were lucky, right? For the tournaments, you know. And it was definitely not organized. Now, you know, you got this time, you know, this match, right? It's very organized. Back in those days, it was a kind of a free for all. It was a little more organized in the early days in Brazil, but you know, we were definitely there because we were there for the passion, the love for the sport. So it was really an honor to be there. All those years later, 22 years later in Vegas, you know, seeing all the Hall of Fame and all these guys, you know, getting recognized. You know, they had a special grappling legends seminar the night before the tournament. Renzo Gracie, not Jean-Jacques, but like Dean Lister, like the Mark Kerr, who's coming out with this, you know, the movie, right? The Rock is playing this year. And I guess he got a standing ovation at the premiere at it was in Venice and like this last week, you know. So man, it's amazing, you know. I heard he's gonna maybe get an Oscar for the movie, you know, just to see how far it's come and where the direction of everything going. Like, man, jiu-jitsu is only gonna grow. You know, like, of course it blew up because of those early UFCs and seeing Royce Gracie, it being versus all the other martial arts and improving the effectiveness of the martial art, you know. But the biggest thing, anybody that does it, right, can attest to it's the lifestyle, right? It's the relationships, it's the lifestyle, the healthy lifestyle. I know it keeps me accountable. Anybody that comes in, like, you know, different ages, right? It just keeps you healthy. So I think, man, going with that, like, it's the right thing that we need, especially with technology and cell phones and computers and whatever. Like, man, like, we're not on our phones when we're on the mat, you know. So I think it's the future for sure. It's got to be. If we're going to be healthy, if we're going to be well, happy, we're going to be. It's a great way to be that, you know, being on the mat doing jiu-jitsu. Also, like, I've gotten very involved with the wrestling, you know, world, you know, with my daughter wrestling, and so it just made me appreciate too jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu you can do, you know, like, you can do it in a good way all the way till the end, you know, all the way until the end, really. And I think wrestling is a little bit harder, right, with the falls and the takedowns and just the rhythm, you know. But jiu-jitsu, you can stay in the game till the end, you know. And I think that's something very special and unique. Yeah, man, that was a big week. Jiu-Jitsu Con, Carlos Gracie Jr., like the Master Carlos Gracie Jr., the founder of you know, it's my lineage, right? Give me my black belt, and he's the head of the IBJJF, and you know, he's probably done. He was the guy who kind of connected everybody to make all these big things happen. He was the one who organized the IBJJF, the Confederation of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Brazil, which is before they had the IBJJF, which is the international thing, which is they had the first Pan Ams, right, and California, and just to see how far it's come. I mean, it was the second Pan Ams that I went to. The second Pan Ams I went to, and they rented the IBJJF didn't rent a hotel, but the guys competing, they all came up and they all stayed in the same hotel. It was by the LAX, and I remember just walking in for the weigh-ins because they had the weigh-ins at the hotel, and all the balconies were filled with geese, people drying out their geese on the balconies. And yeah, it was surreal, man. It was surreal. I remember sitting there with it wasn't Jamie Walsh, it was somebody else, but Eddie Bravo, and us connecting and just kind of taking it in. I felt like we were a part of something special. It didn't make sense, we loved it, and we had no idea what it was going to turn into. UFC was like I said, it was definitely in the beginning stages. They had the UFC still, I think, in those early pay-per-views, but then it was already shifting into something else because Royce Gracie, he left the UFC, or the Gracie family left. He's the Rorion Gracie, right? The guy who helped start the UFC. He left, I think, after the 5th or something like that, 2 or 6th, because the rule changed. Right? They wanted to, instead of it being unlimited time, which wasn't good for TV, they wanted to make it rounds, right, with 5 minutes and stuff.